The NBA offseason is upon us. Free agency opens up on Monday. The top free agents, you're looking at them, all have player options. LeBron James, James Harden, and Julius Randle. Back here with Director of Scouting at 24/7 Sports, Adam Finkelstein, CBS Sports college basketball insider Gary Parrish, and let's welcome in CBS Sports NBA analyst John Gonzalez. LeBron James, 40 years old, continues to produce. He's also been reliable, played 70 games, averaged 35 minutes per night this past season, set to enter his record 23rd season in the NBA, John. New ownership, new younger franchise star to build around, of course, in Luka, as Nico Harrison trades him away. We know about that. We've lived that down. He's had to live that down as well. Now they get a restart with Cooper Flagg. As for LeBron, will LA continue to cater for him on a year-to-year basis here?
Yeah, I expect so, right? I don't think he's going anywhere. He's 40 years old now. He'll be 41 in December. I suspect that LA is his last destination. As you mentioned, he has a player option that's $52.6 million. Either he's going to opt in or he'll opt out and get a new deal, maybe a 1-and-1. Maybe he gives them a little bit more financial flexibility. And, you know, they need to find a big somewhere, right? I mean, Jackson Hayes was nominally their starting center last year, but even though they started him, he didn't get very many minutes in the postseason. They ended up running a lot of LeBron and Dorian Finney-Smith small ball 5. So now you're looking at a full season of LeBron and Luka. They'll be contenders in the West after finishing third. They need some shooting. Everybody needs shooting. But yeah, LeBron's not going anywhere. I expect him to wrap up his career in LA with, you know, Bronny somewhere in the vicinity.
The deadline on the $52.6 million player option for next season is June 29th. Gary, of course, they're going to try to build around LeBron until he decides to retire, but they're also looking towards the future. They have a second star here in the fold in Luka Doncic.
Yeah, there was a point right up until Nico Harrison decided to move Luka Doncic to Los Angeles where we thought we were talking about the LeBron window, whatever that looked like, and you maximize that. But now the Lakers understand that they've got their next superstar. They're not looking for him or wondering who it's going to be or wondering who can force a trade there someday. They know it's going to be Luka Doncic. So, yes, they're going to continue to try to maximize what they can do with that incredible future Hall of Fame duo, but they also have to understand that whenever LeBron does call it a career, they've still got another decade running, in theory, with Luka Doncic.
And I think that's the reason why they have to at least make a subtle pivot here and start to build more around Luka. John mentioned it. They need a 5. They need a lob threat, and we've seen what they did last year when the Mark Williams deal that didn't go through with Charlotte. You know, it's Dalton Connect and it's future draft assets, and that's basically the package. There's some other contracts in there, but what kind of center can you get back in return for that? And then how do you build out the rest of the roster? You need to surround Luka Doncic with shooters and multi-positional defenders to try and get the best out of him. I think we're at the point now where this is about building around Luka. You've already done quite a bit to appease LeBron. Bronny's sitting right there.
Yeah, you have, and they're trying to build and continue to get better in Minnesota around Anthony Edwards. New look, same result for the Timberwolves this season. They lost in the conference finals in 5 games for the 2nd straight year. Julius Randle, one of their acquisitions last offseason, $31 million player option. John, how does Randle's decision factor into the T-Wolves' plans this offseason?
Oh, they got a lot of moving parts, Keem, in Minnesota this summer. So as you mentioned, player option for just south of $31 million. I was not a Julius Randle guy. I thought the Cat end of the trade with the Knicks, they won that side of it. I thought he was a really bad starter in Minnesota to begin the season. It was a ball stopper. I wanted to bring him off the bench, but Chris Finch stuck with him, and post All-Star break, he was excellent. He really grew into that role, became more of a distributor. It's going to be really interesting to see what he does, because I think second half of the season, he really increased his value. He's probably his contract to average annual value, the next one he gets, whether he opts in or not, or opts out and then they extend him, is going to be somewhere in that neighborhood of what he's getting paid right now. So the big question is how much him staying put hampers the team building, because they're deep into that second apron. As you mentioned, they made 2 straight Western Conference Finals, but they lose both of them, and I'm not sure that he moves the needle alongside Ant Edwards beyond that. And then beyond Julius Randle, to figure out, well, Naz Reid has a player option, 6th man of the year from 2 years ago. He makes around $15 million. I think he's worth well more than that. The problem is there's not that much money on the market outside of the Brooklyn Nets, who just took 5 first-round draft picks, so they got to pay those guys too. So a lot of that money just dried up. Nickeil Alexander-Walker had his best season with the Wolves. He's a free agent. It's basically a pick 2 of 3 situation with those guys, either Naz Reid or Julius Randle or Nickeil Alexander-Walker, 2 of those guys, but you can't have all 3. And then on top of that, Mike Conley, who was a starter for them for much of the year, he's 38 years old, obviously has lost a step. They need to upgrade there. So Tim Connolly has a lot of work to do this offseason in Minnesota.
They just drafted Yohan Beringer, who I really like. I think he's going to be a really fantastic player. Adam, what do they need to get them over the hump? I mean, this is 2 straight years where they're out in the finals in 5 games.
Well, I think, and John illustrated the scenario perfectly, and I think one of the challenges right now, here's what they did in the draft. They picked 2 guys that they hope one of whom could be the replacement for Gobert, who's under contract with a player option through 28. But in terms of what they can do to maximize Anthony Edwards, the challenge is, I don't know that there's enough money to sign all 3 of those guys, like John said. And then the question is, are you good enough? Like, if you only get 2 of those 3 guys, let's say you get all 3. Is that an NBA championship caliber team? It's unlikely they get all 3. But if you're Ant Edwards, you want a Robin to your Batman. I'm not sure Julius Randle is that guy. And my question about Julius Randle is, yeah, he was bad in the beginning of the year, and then he picked it up. You know why he picked it up? Because it was a contract year. So you give him another 3 years, what does the beginning of next season look like? I would have major questions about that and about boxing myself in right now if I were Tim Connolly.
So the Timberwolves are in an interesting situation based off of the fact they've been to back-to-back Western Conference Finals. They cannot get over that hump. So the question as you presented it is, what do they need to do to get past that? Hope that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander pulls a hamstring next June. Hope that Chet Holmgren suffers an ankle injury in Game 3 of a best-of-7 series. I think for just about everybody in the Western Conference, outside of Houston, who maybe right now thinks we got Kevin Durant, we're ready to go stare them down. Everybody else, you're kind of just trying to get as good as you can get and get into a series with them, avoid them as long as you can, and then hope, like every year in the NBA playoffs, something happens that dictates the way this series is going to unfold. Trying to build a roster that's going to get you past Oklahoma City is just a waste of everybody's energy. You can't get there. Nobody can get there. But you can get a roster in a place where if we are in a series with them and instead of our best player or 3rd best player going down, their 3rd best player or 2nd best player goes down, now we're in business. That's all you can hope for. You can't out-roster build them right now.
And that was the situation in the Eastern Conference. Everybody was waiting for LeBron James to clear out. Now he's out of the Eastern Conference, and the Eastern Conference is wide open. And one of the reasons why it's wide open, unfortunately, the Celtics suffered an injury to their best player in Jason Tatum. Brad Stevens emphasized regaining flexibility when speaking to reporters on Wednesday night. They've ducked the second apron penalties by trading Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis. John, with the draft in the rear view, it's safe to say that Jaylen Brown will be staying put. Are they done? What are they doing next?
Yeah, I mean, everybody knew that they had to unplug either Drew Holiday or Kristaps Porzingis, right? And they did both of those, and they saved themselves around $200 million in tax money. So as you mentioned, they get out of the second apron. They could even still duck the first apron and the tax entirely. So, yeah, they might probably still keep listening to deals on Derek White and Jaylen Brown. No Jason Tatum next year. The East is bad, but they're also not contenders, right? I mean, even if you keep these guys around, it's not like the Boston Celtics are probably going to get out of even a weakened Eastern Conference next year. So I think they're going to continue to field phone calls on this one. And don't forget, Jaylen Brown, massive contract. I mean, 4 years left on this deal. Next season pays him over $53 million, and it just increases from there. So you have to at least field some offers and think about this thing. But Derek White is going to be the piece, I think, that is the hardest to move, because by comparison to somebody like Jaylen Brown, his new 4-year deal is almost a bargain. It's 4 for $118. So for everything that he gives you at both ends of the floor, a guy who's been all defense previously and he's an unconventional guard. He's not a traditional point guard, but he can play both of them, and he can guard essentially 1 through 5 in a pinch. He's super switchable. I think he's the guy that, I'm sure that there's a lot of contenders out there who would love a Derek White, but I seriously doubt that he's on the move. So really, it's just shoring up your front court, right? You're looking at cheap deals on on Cornette and Horford. And if you're lucky, maybe you move Sam Hauser's deal and you slide somebody into that mid-level exception, and then boom, you've ducked the tax.
Celtics decided to live and die by the 3 last year, and that's really what the NBA game has changed. They met their demise in the second round of the playoffs, also got hampered by the injuries with Jason Tatum, and I don't think they were going to win that series anyway. But Adam, what type of adjustments do they need to make to maximize without having Jason Tatum on the floor next season?
Well, I would like to see a little bit more growth from the players they've drafted recently. Do they get anything out of Baylor Shireman? I mean, listen, Peyton Pritchard, he is a tremendous story for the Celtics, not only because of the gains he's made there, but because they have him on a beautiful contract. So it's a terrific story of player development and then being able to maximize that asset at a very reasonable price in the market. Now, can anybody else step up? Can they get anything out of Jordan Walsh? Can they get anything out of Baylor Shireman? Those young players figuring out exactly what they have, I think, is a crucial part to this second iteration of the Jason Tatum era. Because if those guys aren't long-lasting pieces, they have to figure that out this year while Tatum is out of the lineup.
I live in the Memphis area. I'm a fan of a small market franchise, so I kind of appreciate that you can't just pay everybody whatever you want to pay them. Otherwise, this looks like Major League Baseball. I'm a fan of the Pittsburgh Pirates, and I'm just wasting my summers every single year. I like the system in place that allows something like what's happening in Oklahoma City to happen. But take that, set it aside, this is just tough for that Boston fan base, that Boston franchise. They are fighting to break through with Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown for years. They take all the playoff scars people think you're supposed to take before you can finally hold the trophy. They hold the trophy, and we're talking about going back-to-back. We're talking about a possible dynasty. I know you think that they would have lost that series to the Knicks anyway, and you might have been right. But there were other people who thought Boston had gained control of that and were about to get past them. You get past them, you're probably getting past the next one. You get past the next one. Somebody would have picked them to beat Oklahoma City. Jason Tatum goes down, and I know there was going to be roster retooling no matter what, but it does seem to have expedited everything. And to go from on the verge of maybe back-to-back champs to this inside of a month is kind of a wild set of circumstances.
Well, the NBA draft is complete. The Eastern Conference is wide open. Free agency's open, and a lot of happenings, a lot of comings and goings here in the NBA. John Gonzalez, Adam Finkelstein, and Gary Parrish here with us on CBS Sports HQ. Men, thank you. Here's a look at the key dates to know. Sunday is the deadline for teams and players for their options to be exercised. Free agent negotiations begin on Monday. Teams can sign their free agents later on July 6th. Then a few days later, the Vegas Summer League begins, and you can count on CBS Sports HQ for complete NBA free agency coverage. When news breaks, we'll be here to break it down.